Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is Eric Stewart from Fishing Fanatics, and I have an awesome guest with me today, Ryan Salzman. He is the owner of True Bass Swimbaits and a guide on the Tennessee River, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Ryan's rise in the Bass Pro in the professional circuit here has been quick, as he started as a captain in the Army, and he's been kind of chasing that pro fishing career ever since. So how you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man, and I really appreciate you joining me here. One of the questions I always like asking professional bass fishermen is kind of how you got started. I know you were a captain in the Army before you got started, so why don't you just fill our listeners in kind of how you got started?
Well, my parents didn't fish at all. My uncles did, and my first time fishing, my uncle took me when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I just loved it ever since. I mean, just literally, it was just something that was kind of built in me. And like I said, my parents didn't fish, so after that, I was always begging my mom to take me fishing, and this and that. So I would I would always go to Walmart and pick out everything, and I would rig up everything myself because my uncles lived, out of state. So once I'll go visit and maybe fish once a year with them, but away, I was always trying to learn myself. And, that was the time dial up internet was kind of starting. And basically, I was getting on dial up and reading anything I could on the internet just about how to catch fish. Um, and I was just going to local ponds, in high school, this and that. High school fishing wasn't even a thought in anyone's mind. Neither was college fishing at the time. And I would just ate up with fishing. And I caught my first bass. My parents were stationed at Fort Bragg. My parents were also military. And I was fishing for whatever would buy. I had this big gob of night crawlers on a bobber. And I was at this army pond and I was reeling it in. I had a bobber, probably 3 feet a leader. And I just never forget that nightcrawler was kind of doing a corkscrew on the way in. And this giant bass ate it right off the bank. And it was like at a playground, and there was a bunch of parents and kids watching me fight this fish. And right at the end, I got it up to the bank and it broke me off. But I'm looking back, it's still one of the biggest fish I think I've hooked. I mean, its eyes, were those dollar, half dollar looking eyeballs popping out of its head. It's just burned in my brain, and ever since then, I was addicted to bass fishing. Like, it wasn't just fishing, I wanted to catch bass.
Dude, that's an awesome story. It kind of resembles kind of how I got started in the fishing, going down to a community college, climbing underneath the gate to go this little run off stream pond and just throwing a topwater frog, just plopping it on lily pads, and all of a sudden just
Mhm.
explosions. It's awesome how everyone has a different story about how they get into fishing. So it's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing yours.
Yeah, man.
And that really seems to streamline kind of into your career here. I see that you started True Bass Swimbaits. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about True Bass Swimbaits?
Yeah, so there's a kind of a fun story to that. There was a company called Hippo Swimbaits, and they made this really big swim bait. It was a 7.5 inch swim bait. And, the first year that side scan came out, we were fledge fishing, and this swim bait was catching really big fish. Like, so with a head, it's basically 8 inches. And I got like a fall with it, throwing it on Pickwick like a late summer bite, and then I got pulled for deployment, and I was deployed for about a year. And over that year, that swim bait company went out of business. So I came back and I was really upset that I couldn't get the swim bait that I was catching so many fish with. And long story short, I found someone to make it for me, and I was just gonna get some for me and my buddies. And they were like, "No, you got to get like 500 of each color." So I went to school for marketing with the whole intent to fish professionally, and basically said, "Well, if I'm gonna get that many, I'm gonna sell them." And I started brainstorming, come up with the name True Bass, and I said, "I can't just sell one giant swim bait. I need a smaller one to go with it," and designed the little one, which is called the Little Head 4.5, and the big one is called the Big Head 7.5. And I actually named that bait after George Capitan. He fished the FLW tour for a while, and he's got a big head, and everyone, his nickname was Big Head. So it's funny because of Reaction Innovations, everyone thinks these names are like phallic symbols, um, with my lure names and stuff like that, but it's really originated from George Capitan and Big Head. But that's pretty much how the company started. I took out my own money, I risked it, and I sold that first order I did. It was like $20,000 worth of swim baits. I sold it in like 2.5, 3 weeks. and then ordered some more, and I've just kept snowballing it. You reinvest it back into, and you just keep building it, and now we're in, I don't even know how many hundreds of tackle stores and tackle warehouse, and we sell all over the world. We have people in Japan even ordering our baits, which is really cool.
Dude, that is awesome. How long have you guys been in business for?
Well, I started it in the winter of 2015, like right in
Nice.
December there.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And so you're in big box stores, and can people also find this online?
Yeah, man. TrueSwimbaits.com, and you can go to Tackle Warehouse. If you just type in True Bass or True Swimbaits, it's gonna pop up. You can just Google it and it'll pop up. So
Sweet, awesome, man. And we will definitely drop your link in the description here in this video.
yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, we've kind of expanded into other lures now, other than swim baits. We got a really sweet hair jig. My whole deal with True Bass is I try to make great quality baits with experts in that field. So I'm a swim bait guy, right? And then we got Brent Anderson, who's a expert ledge fisherman. He designed a ledge spinner bait called the BA Spinner. Stands for Brent Anderson or Badass, either one. But it's like a 5 arm spinnerbait made for ledge fishing, and it's an ounce and a quarter, and it catches the crap out of them. It's kind of, we don't sell that many of them anymore, just because it's considered an Alabama rig. You can throw it up through the Toyota level, but you can't throw it at the professional level. But it's a sleeper bait, and it really catches them. And I also did the same thing with my buddy David Allen, who guides on Pickwick Lake, and he always hand tied a hair jig for us, and it's the best hair jig that we've ever thrown. That's why we got him to tie it for us, and I finally convinced him to let me make it with True Bass and mass produce it, and we got it perfect. And it's literally the best hair jig on the market. I mean, and that's coming out of the mouth of several pros. It is actually the hair jig that won Jordan Lee the heavy hitters tournament on Kissimmee.
so that hair jig has a little history for sure.
Oh yeah, yep.
That's awesome, man. Sweet. So shifting a little bit here, let's talk about your college days a little bit. I know that you started a club, co-founded a club at
hmm
University of Northern Alabama Fishing, and it's a fishing club in 2008. So tell me a little bit what it's like sitting in college, going through the classes. Like, man, I really love fishing, and I just want to start this club. And how'd you kind of do it?
Well, it originally wasn't my idea. It was Nick Cup's idea. He moved up here from Louisiana, and he had a bass cat, and he liked to bass fish, and he's done more tournaments than I had at the time, but I was ate up with fishing, obviously. And then he was like, I got this idea. I was like, let's start it. So it was in his garage one afternoon or evening. I think it was about dark, and we decided that we were going to start the UNA bass fishing team, and basically recruited a few guys. Cody Braden, who now works for Leopold, and Sam Hickman. I'm not sure what he's doing now, but yeah, we all sat down and wrote the Constitution and bylaws, and it's an ordeal when you start something like that. There's a lot of in-house fighting, that should be done this way, say fighting discussions rather, but yeah, it and in the end, that's the school has a couple national championships. I think they've won school of the year, got second place school of the year, and they're just one of the best teams in the country.
That's awesome. And the club's still around?
Oh yeah, it's really strong. It's got 30, 40 guys.
That's got to be pretty cool for you looking back on it, to be like, I really left my legacy in college. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I don't ever when I do things, I don't ever think about that. And I try to stress that to people coming up and fishing that if you're doing it to make a name, you're really not going to make it because it's the wrong motivation, and you really just have to love it.
That's it, right? Just genuine like love for the game, love for fishing, and that's it, man. Inspiring people too. I'm sure there's college kids that are on that team right now that look up to you.
Oh, sure. And so it's kind of funny. I take a lot of high school kids fishing on guide trips their parents get for them, and I run across really talented kids every now and then. And there's a couple of twins, Dylan and Carter Nutt. They kind of ran the gambit in high school fishing. They won a lot and got a lot of top fives, top threes, and they are now at UNA. And I took them on a guide trip, and we caught them really good on the guide trip too. So it's kind of cool to have that relationship with people like that, and that, they're at the team that you started. So
Nice. And yeah, your guide trip. Talk a little bit about your guide trip. I almost completely forgot about the Alabama Bass Guide. So talk to you a little bit about that. Where do you guys run locations you guys are at?
so basically, how Alabama Bass Guide started was I was trying to figure out a way to fish professionally, like all through college. I actually started out in college. I was a drummer, and I got a percussion scholarship. I played for 2 years in the UNA Pride of Dixie marching band, and had a scholarship doing that, and kind of got burnt out because I did it for like 10, 12 years playing the drums. And I thought I was going to be, like a music teacher and fish in the summers, and that's how I was going to, try and get good enough. And then we kind of started that fishing team. At the same time, I ran out of money for college, so I enlisted in the military, because they have the benefits and whatever. And then I contracted ROTC at UNA, which made me non-deployable, which I was able to finish my, curriculum. So it was all in that shift where I quit drumming, joined the Army, started the UNA team, and I didn't have a bass boat yet. And I was just co-angling, right? I was co-angling with Nick and just whoever I could go with. Did 1 year on the college fishing team like that. Got my own boat the second year without my parents' knowledge because, they're prior military. They're kind of old school, right? They're like, you're not going to fish for a living. You're going to get a real job, this and that. So I bought a bass boat behind their back with my bonus money from the military and hid it from them for a while. And I was fishing and got invited to help with a guide trip on Pickwick Lake in that boat I was using, and got paid like $400 for 4 or 5 hours. And the light bulb went off. I was like, this is how I can, get enough time on the water and get good enough to become pro. And ever since it started out as Salzy's Guide Service because my nickname is Salzy because my last name is Salzman. And I learned a lot so I got pulled for that deployment. So I did like probably 10 guide trips and then got deployed. While I was deployed, I did a lot of research into SEO, search engine optimization, for anyone that's watching. And Salzy's Guide Service isn't really Googleable. Will not get found organically. So I started brainstorming. This is pre-True Bass, guys.
Mhm.
So anyone that's watching, and this is kind of what led to True Bass is all this research I did into SEO and all that. I landed on Alabama Bass Guide, and I couldn't believe it was available, and I instantly bought it. And at the same time, I actually bought a lot of other domains that are very like will be popular, or someone will want to buy them in the future. So it was fun to do. It gave me something to do while I was deployed. I built my website, built a lot of SEO into it, and when I came home, I was like book solid. And I was like fresh guide, never guided before, and just hit the ground running. And this is what I tell people all the time, to be a good guide, you don't have to like have spots. You gotta be able to find fish every day on whatever lake you're guiding. You have to understand that lake and just break it down and get on fish quickly, which is by definition what you have to do in a professional tournament. So after years and years of doing that, it just transferred over effortlessly into the pro side.
Dude, that's literally like awesome because it's every day it's different for whatever lake you're fishing on. Like I'll go out with
Hmm.
like my buddies and it'll be like, oh, we'll go to one spot one day, be like, oh, we crushed it. We're gonna hit the same spot tomorrow. Go to the same spot tomorrow. Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. So it's funny how a lake can just change just like that.
Yeah. What I tell people is you have to do the same thing you did to find the fish, to find to find them again. Right. So you just went fishing and you were open minded and you were just kind of free and just let's try this, let's try that. And then you landed on it. Then you think the problem with human nature is we're very like logic driven and there's a formula for everything. And in school, everyone's taught 2 + 2 = 4. Fishing is not 2 + 2 = 4. A lot of times it's 1 + 1 + 1, or, you know, it might be 4 × 2 divided by 2. To get to the answer, like there's so many different creative ways that you have to figure out to get to 4.
That's an awesome way to put it. And every day it's different. Um, so first off, I just wanted to thank you for your service. Right off the bat, I appreciate you serving in the armed forces here in the Army. If you can make a connection for me, is there anything that really translated over to serving in the Army and what it takes to become a professional bass fisherman?
So I relate everything to fishing, and my branch of service was military intelligence. And basically, military intelligence is identical to the process of finding bass. Military intelligence is the process of gaining intelligence to find and defeat the enemy, right? Bass fishing, you're gaining intel to find and defeat the bass, right?
Yeah.
So, if you can have anything you're learning and tie it to what you know, you're going to be really good at it. So I was really good at military intelligence because you have all your sources, your open source, right? That's going to be internet, Google, this and that. You use the same thing to find fishing reports, stuff like that. And then you have human intelligence, which that's going to be your doc talk. That's your buddies, this and that. And then there's grains of truth in that. And then you have like your geographical intelligence, which that's going to be your satellites. You can break down the lakes with that. And then you have also like this infrared and all this other stuff that you can use, and that's the GPS and side scan and sonar. So it literally, it's you have the same assets. It's really cool. I mean, the same assets that we use to find bass in a lake are the same assets that we're using to find bad guys.
That's what an awesome connection there, running down the entire list of all that and how you actually like locate bass in the different like avenues you have too, whether it be researching, talking to your buddies on the dock, even like a side scan and live scope like that. So that's awesome. Ryan, again, I just wanted to appreciate you joining me on this podcast and talking about it. I always like to leave out a little segment at the end to let you plug whatever you want, whether it be your company, your guide service. Let everyone know where they can find you at on all those different things, and then tell them your Instagram and all that good stuff.
Sure, yeah. I kind of have a long list of social media. I'm pretty big on TikTok these days. It's at Ryan Salzman. The focus has shifted in 2023 to YouTube. So go to Alabama Bass Guide on YouTube, and we're trying to get that on the level of TikTok and all that. And if you want to take a guide trip with me, just go to alabamabassguide.com.
Sweet. I appreciate you doing this, man, and we'll talk to you in the future. Thanks.
You just listened to the Fishing Fanatics podcast with your host, Eric Stewart. Feel free to check out our other podcasts and our other interviews on our channel on Spotify, YouTube, and much more. Check out our Instagram page, TikTok, and Facebook as well.